Musaca. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on moussaka, but I'm going to present to you today a version of moussaka, the way I've seen it done. Now, I've seen it on Food Network, I've seen it in cookbooks, I've heard about it from Turks who claim that the Turks invented it, and Greeks who claim the Greeks invented it. I don't know who invented it, I don't really care. But it's a dish with potato and eggplant, my version at least. And potato and eggplant go very nicely together. And my version that I'm going to make for you, I'm going to put pulled lamb shank meat in a light tomato sauce. And so you'll see how it all comes together. I've sliced off eggplant. Now, I have seen these fried, but I'm not going to fry them because I think frying eggplant this way, I'm going to soak up a ton of oil. So what I'm going to do is put them on a well-oiled cookie tray and then roast them in the oven at quite a high temperature. Like I'm going to put them in at 500, 550, pretty much as hot as you can get your stove is what you want. And the reason being, there's a lot of moisture in an eggplant. It's all water. And so if you go at too low a temperature, you will not brown them. You'll just have them weep out the moisture. So you need to have a high temperature for these eggplants. On the oil, on the cookie sheet, fit them in there. Don't overlap them really. And season them in the oven, super high temperature. And you'll see them going in. With the eggplants, we are going to deep fry some potatoes of a similar shape, sort of a half moon shape. Here we have them, slightly browned off. Some are, some aren't. The bottom is. It's going to work for our purposes. The bottom line is you want to get out a lot of the water and you want to caramelize them, put some flavor in. That was our tomato sauce there. Tomato sauce is made with pulled lamb shank meat, as I mentioned. And here's where I'm holding my eggplant pieces, my roasted eggplant pieces. There's a little bit of oil that they've soaked up, so I'm just putting them in a bowl and in newspaper because that newspaper is going to absorb the excess oil, as opposed to the pieces of eggplant just sitting in oil and getting soggy, soaking up more. I'm just going to soak some of it up with these newspaper pieces, like fish and chips in the old days, or even currently in some places. Here are my potatoes. I'm just going to slice them off, as I mentioned, into sort of half moon shapes. Notice how I've set up this cookie sheet beside my cutting board. This is sort of a stupid cutting board, really. It's a circle, and I like it for whatever reasons, none good. And I would advise you to buy yourself a rectangular cutting board, either wooden or plastic, and you can butt a cookie sheet right up beside. You notice how I'm slicing these off really fast and I just slide it right onto the cookie sheet. It's a very efficient way to do things. Just cut them and slide them onto the cookie sheet. There's our lamb shanks, and this is the tomato sauce that I braised my lamb shanks in. So all I did was brown my lamb shanks, put in mirepoix, which is onion, carrot, and celery, and used those vegetables to deglaze my pot, and then I added in stewed tomatoes. Braised the lamb shanks for quite some time, I believe 6 hours, which is way overboard, but I want to pull this meat off, and I wanted to get a lot of lamb flavor into my tomato sauce. And I'm pressing this sauce through a food mill, as you can see. The reason being, I don't want to puree a tomato sauce that much. I don't want to use the electricity, for one. And secondly, you puree a tomato sauce, you turn it into sort of an orange tomato soup looking thing. And I don't want that. I want to have sort of some of a rustic feel to it. So the tomato sauce is smooth, but there's little bits of tomato and all these sorts of all the vegetables that were pressed in there. And here's the lamb shank meat. I'm pulling it off of the bone. Every last morsel is going to come off the bone. And I'll just stir that into my sauce. here are my eggplant pieces and potato pieces. The potatoes, as I mentioned, were also roasted off in the oven. You could deep fry them, but I didn't. Didn't want to use so much oil. And I'm going to fold everything together as simply as that. Ideally, you have as many cookie sheets as you can fit in the oven at one time. This is the downfall in terms of thrift for this dish, is that we are using the oven and we are using it for quite some time. Total for this, we probably ran the oven for 40 minutes. These are breadcrumbs. I just used stale bread. Any bread that I didn't want to eat and wasn't ready to make into breadcrumbs, I either, if it wasn't stale, I froze it. And if it was stale, I just kept it in a bucket and added to the bucket if I happen to not go through my bread as quickly as I ought to. Hold on to it until it's good and stale, and then either chop it up really finely with your knife or run it in your food processor, or just grate it on the finest side of your box grater that you cheese grate with. Here you see I'm pushing my mixture into this 1-inch deep tray, roasting pan, call it what you will. I'm really packing it in there actually. You could probably pack this in so tightly that if you roasted it, you could pop it out if you had put it on parchment paper, and you could probably cut little discs of this if that was what you were into. And if you were looking to serve it as a nice dish, and I mean it is a nice dish, but if you were looking to serve it in a little bit more elegant fashion, you could present it as sort of a puck or a square shape, meaning almost like you would cut Rice Krispie squares up. You could cut these little pieces of moussaka, but we're not going to do that. I'm basically going to pack in as much as I can because I don't want to dirty too many trays, and then I'm going to sprinkle some more breadcrumbs on top, and then we're going to roast it all in the oven. I mean, everything's cooked, so we don't have to cook it much more from here. This is a little bit of cheese. This is sort of, I believe, a bastardization. I mean, this whole dish is a bastardization, but it's very tasty, I assure you. It's not a classic or traditional moussaka from Turkey, Greece, you name it. Doesn't matter. It's not authentic, but it is tasty and it is thrifty. It's potatoes, eggplant, a couple lamb shanks. You could use lamb shoulder. You could use pretty much any braisable meat that you wanted. You could use chicken. This dish, the type of dish, is going to be good with just about any protein. And the key is it's not a lot of protein. You saw 2 lamb shanks, not a lot of meat, but they do provide a lot of flavor because they're on the bone. And that's my suggestion to you. Get what you can out of it. And here we have it. Your family's going to love it. Super thrifty, inexpensive potatoes, eggplant, a little bit of lamb, beautiful tomato sauce. It's a great dish and extraordinarily inexpensive. Not a lot of time, especially once you get really quick with the knife. Serve it with a little salad. It's a nice light meal. Very smart choice.